few weeks ago, we started this series, The Long Way, and we started by just looking at Jesus himself. And there was a moment when we get recorded in the Bible where it says that it was time for Jesus to go to heaven. It was time for him to return to his Father. And when that time came, he resolutely set his face towards Jerusalem. Now, if you weren't here week one, this feels like, okay, there's some dots that need connecting. So I'm gonna do that really quick. Jesus had largely avoided Jerusalem for most of his ministry. He had gone and visited, and then he would leave. He would visit, and then he would leave. And the reason was because every time he was there, he just stirred up a ton of trouble. In fact, most of the moments where we get where there's a plot to kill Jesus happens when he's in Jerusalem. And so he wouldn't stay there. He would go and do ministry and teach. He would cause conflict, and then he would go out from Jerusalem. Well, it was time, that's what it says, it was time for him to go back to heaven, and he decided, I want to get to heaven by going to Jerusalem first. Now, Jesus, being the Son of God, if it's time for him to return to the Father, he can do that whenever he wants because that's what the Son of God can do. But he decided, I'm not gonna take the shortcut, I'm gonna go the long way. And he knew when he went back to Jerusalem, the cross was what was waiting on him. That he would not avoid it, that as soon as he walked into Jerusalem, within a week, he was gonna, maybe he would be positive at the beginning because people were excited when he, the rabbi, this really famous guy, would come to town. But by the end of the week, the cross is what was waiting on him. And so Jesus made a declaration that he would take the long way on our behalf. And then he goes even further than that. Because of the cross, he actually becomes the long way. And Jesus himself says, I am the way, the truth, the life, and nobody gets to the Father except through me. I am the way. Which way? The long way. Jesus is the long way. And there's no way around it. That led us through a few discoveries over the last couple of weeks where we really had to ask ourselves some really tough questions. We ended last week with probably one of the most difficult questions. Do you just want to go to heaven? Or do you want to be righteous? Do you want to be holy? Not can you be righteous, not can you be holy, because apart from Jesus, we do not have the ability or capacity to do that, but do we have a desire inside of us to be righteous? Or are we content just with, I don't want to go to hell, I'd rather go to heaven? And if that's my choice, I guess I want to know Jesus. Or does the reality of Jesus on the cross lead us to something deeper? Does it lead us to something more meaningful in our life? Where we would say, while I don't know how to be all right with God or righteous, and I don't know how to be completely holy or called out and set apart for a specific purpose by God, I don't know how to get there, I desire it. I desire those things. I don't just want the end result, I want the journey to mean something. I want my life to mean something. I want heaven on earth as best I can with the power and the ability and the vision and the life that God has given me. I don't want to wait. I want to do what Jesus said when he taught his disciples to pray, and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I want to taste a little bit of heaven. I don't want to just go to heaven one day. I actually have a desire to be like Jesus. And those are two very different positions in your mind. So many people in Christendom, especially in the United States, just don't want to go to hell. But that's not the question we're supposed to be asking. When we read the Bible, when we actually study the Bible, it's so much more than just don't go to hell, go to heaven. It's bigger than that. And so last week we asked those really difficult questions. Hopefully there were some seeds planted, and if you missed last week, hopefully that was enough of a seed to plant in your heart, because today I hope to do a little bit of watering, and let's just see if it grows. Let me get us set up. When Jesus decided to go to Jerusalem, he ends up in Jerusalem during one of the pilgrimage festivals. There's 3 of those for the Jewish nation. One of them is Passover. This is the festival that brings Jesus to Jerusalem. It's a pretty specific and important festival. It reminds them of their freedom that was given to them from Egypt when they were enslaved for about 400 years, a long time in their past. And so they would remember that with the idea of Passover. And so it was a pretty significant moment in the calendar year for the Jewish people. It brought everyone together. That's what the pilgrimage festivals were. It brings everyone to Jerusalem. And so they would travel to celebrate this festival together as a nation. And so when Jesus shows up to Jerusalem, when he finally gets there, that's what he's there for, is Passover. And it is on the night that he's celebrating Passover, he is having a meal with his closest friends. That evening, he withdraws from that meal and he goes to pray in a private place. And one of his closest friends, named Judas, betrays him and brings the religious authorities to arrest Jesus. And Jesus is arrested, and then he begins a series of trials, 3 civil and 3 religious trials. All of them are technically illegal, both in the civil law or the civic side of law and religious law, completely illegal and not, what do we say, legit? Yeah, illegitimate trials is what he has. We're gonna pick up as those come to a close today. Jesus is in front of one of the Roman authorities named Pilate. And Pilate is the local guy that's kind of making sure everything kind of stays in order for the Roman Empire. He is not Jewish, but the Jewish authorities have finally brought him to Pilate. He's in front of Pilate. They're accusing him of a lot of things, accusing Jesus of a lot of things, and that's where we pick up in Mark chapter 15, starting with verse 3. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, talking to Jesus, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of?" But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. So he's not amazed like, man, this is so cool. He's amazed like, dude, you're not even sticking up for yourself. Like they keep throwing these accusations at you and accusing you of all kind of things, and you have nothing to say for yourself. Like, and as Pilate starts to wrap his mind around what's taking place, he's struggling with the idea of why Jesus wouldn't just simply say, hey, that's not true, and this is why I can point to it. Because Pilate can see through it. Pilate realizes these accusations are baseless. He gets it. And he's looking at Jesus like, this would be so easy for you to get out of. Why are you just sitting there silent? Now, if you were here with us last week, maybe you remember why Jesus decided to remain silent. You see, Jesus is simply fulfilling a heads up that the Jewish people got about this moment in the life of Jesus 700 years before it happened. We find it in Isaiah 53, where he describes this moment in the life of Jesus 700 years before it happens. This is what Isaiah said in 53, verse 7. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Jesus, in that moment, knew his purpose. He had resolutely set his face towards Jerusalem. He had now entered Jerusalem, and he was now living out what Isaiah 53 told in advance would be taking place. Pilate feels uncomfortable about it, though. Again, Pilate's seeing through the charade that's taking place by the religious leaders. He's understanding, bro, they are throwing this guy under the bus, and it's wrong. And so Pilate starts to think. He starts thinking to himself, how can I make some right out of this? And so this is what happens in verse 6. Now it was the custom at the festival to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. "Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate, knowing it was out of self-interest that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. And so Pilate begins to think, he's like, okay, so one of the accusations they're bringing against Jesus is that he's an insurrectionist. Now, to get you into a little bit of history in the first century, Rome had expanded so much, taken over Jerusalem, and so they occupied Jerusalem. However, the gentleman's agreement they had with the Jews was you can live life like normal. You can have your temple and your Torah. You can go through all your religious rituals. You can have all your special days. We're not going to force you to become Roman, none of those things. You do you, and as long as you're quiet and don't cause trouble and you pay your taxes, if you will do those things, life will be just fine for you. Do everything you want to continue to do, everything will be just fine. And so an insurrectionist, anything that would come in and say, no, we don't want Rome. We don't want Rome to oppress us or to occupy our land. We want freedom. The religious leaders had it pretty good. They had a pretty good life with this arrangement with Rome. Most of the people had a pretty decent life with this arrangement with Rome. And so they would not want insurrectionists there because it would upset the apple cart. If Rome, there was nothing Jerusalem could do. If Rome all of a sudden said, hey, I'm done with Judaism, they could destroy the temple, which eventually they do in 72 AD. They could destroy the temple. They could ransack the whole religion and say, hey, you're done. We're going to export you somewhere else like we did, or like you were exiled previously in your history. They could have done something, and the Jewish people could have done nothing about it. And so when they say Jesus is an insurrectionist, Pilate sees through it and says, okay, well, I'm going to honor the normal tradition. I'll give you an option. Do you want Jesus, the insurrectionist, or do you want me to release Pilate, the actual insurrectionist that killed people? Like when you talk about someone who's going to stir up trouble, Jesus is going to stir up trouble, but he's going to stir up trouble in terms of how they're going to connect to God. Barabbas killed someone trying to overthrow Rome, which is the most dangerous thing for the Jewish people. And so he gives them an option they can't refuse. Pilate's smart. He's like, look, I know the thing they love most is the relationship and the cushy little arrangement they've got with us. They're not going to put that in danger. Which one do you want? Verse 11. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have Pilate release Barabbas instead. What? What? It's wild. Like we hear this, maybe if you grew up in church, you hear this and you're like, oh, okay, well, they just must have really loved Barabbas. No, they really hated Jesus. Jesus was upending everything about their religious system. He was taking everything that they had been accustomed to and saying, you know what, let me show you a more godlike way. So they answer him. And so Pilate responds, verse 12. What shall I do then with the one you call the King of the Jews? Pilate asked them. Crucify him, they shouted. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. Pilate still isn't sure what Jesus is guilty of. Like he's asking him. He's like, what did he do? And like, it doesn't matter, we're not answering that question. We're just telling you what we want you to do with him. So Pilate gave in. He released Barabbas, and he handed Jesus over to be flogged and crucified. Now, this next part, typically our habit is we put the passage on the screen and you read it along with me as I'm reading. This next little piece, I want to do something different this morning. And I want to do it differently because the author of this book, Mark, he does such an incredible job at painting a picture in this next section that I don't really want you to read it. I would rather you watch it. And so I don't have a film for you to watch other than the film that I'm going to read to you that will show in your head with your eyes closed. So I'm going to ask when I start reading that you would close your eyes and you would simply watch what unfolds in these 3 verses. The detail that Mark gives us is remarkable. Undoubtedly, everyone will walk away with a pretty similar picture. the picture that Mark creates for us in chapter 15, verses 16 through 20. Would you close your eyes and watch the film that God gives you as I read it to you? The soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called together the whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on him, then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews." Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put on his own clothes. Then they led him out to crucify him. It's so important for you to understand the state of Jesus that you just witnessed in your own mind to really understand what we have to talk about today. So up until now has just been the introduction. But to get to what we're actually talking about today, you have to have a visual. But it can't just be a visual that's manufactured. It's got to be a visual that you own. Because what happens next won't make sense to you unless you really can see what Jesus is walking through. I'll tell you, what happens next is wild. When you talk about wrong place at the wrong time, I'm not sure it gets any more poster child than this. We pick up right there in Mark 15:21. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. It says he was passing by. Like he wasn't there to watch. He wasn't following Jesus. He wasn't connected to Jesus. He wasn't a sympathizer of Jesus. He was just coming in from the country. We don't know if he was living out in the country and was coming in because it was festival weekend. We don't know that detail. We don't know if he was working in the country and returning home from work. We don't know that detail. All we know is he was in the country, and as he was passing by, again, Roman crucifixion and criminals carrying their cross was a normal thing. Like that happened. And so it wouldn't be like this appointment television moment. Like criminals were crucified in Rome often. Sometimes they would line the streets coming into Roman cities. It wasn't like a huge big deal. And so it wasn't like, oh, everybody's come out for this. So Simon, as he's coming in from the country, he's just passing by, and it's just like a normal, regular Friday for him. And as he's passing by, they see him, and they're just like, hey, you come carry his cross. And you begin to wonder, like, what? Why couldn't Jesus carry his own cross? Go back to the film that God played you in your mind. That's why he couldn't carry his own cross. Because they flogged him and then they beat him over and over again in the head. And they put the crown of thorns on him and they continued to spit on him. And that took a little while. And that entire process, it goes and then he gets the cross and then he's got to carry it. And so at some point he runs out of strength that a man can have. And he falls to the ground, and the Roman soldiers are like, I got somewhere to be. I'm not waiting on this guy to figure it out. You come carry the cross. I don't know what that would be like. To be in the crowd and have my name called. They didn't know Simon's name. They probably just pointed at a guy. They were like, hey, we think you can probably make it the rest of the way. What would that feel like, though? Justice. Caleb. What would it feel like? Matt. What would it feel like? They called my number, called my name. My guess is my heart would start beating like 1,000,000 miles a minute. And honestly, I would probably like, bro, I was just coming in from the country. This is not my thing. This is not my thing. Like, I'm not, but they didn't give it a choice. It says they forced him to carry it. Forced him. He had no choice. I love that Mark includes this moment because it teaches us such an invaluable lesson. The cross is an interruption. It's an interruption. Like, there's never a moment when it's like, man, this cross came at the best time. Like, we get to see it play out in real life. Simon is going about his day, and there's the cross of Jesus right there in front of him. And it's interrupting everything he has planned. If he's a devout Jew, then, well, the cross that Jesus was carrying has got blood all over it. And so in terms of rituals and how he's going to be clean for the rest of the Passover, like, this puts him in a pretty not great place because he's going to have to carry the thing with the guy's blood all over it. It's an inconvenience. The cross never shows up at the best time. The cross never presents itself when we are completely ready. The cross is inconvenient. It's an interruption. You know, sometimes I wonder why Jesus didn't just give himself like a little supernatural dose of adrenaline to carry his own cross. Like, wouldn't that have been a better picture? You know, like the violins, music starts to play, Jesus is on the ground, and like the intense music, and all of a sudden he like Rocky Fours it and like pushes up with the cross and then carries the whole thing himself. Isn't that a better picture of the Son of God takes away the sins of the world carrying his own cross? Isn't that a better image for us as followers of Jesus, that he powered through and he pushed through, that he was resilient? Like, isn't that a better image for us? But instead, he's so weak, he has to get another guy to carry his own cross to his death. Jesus chose not to play the Son of God card. In fact, in a few moments, I'm going to read to you another passage where he was offered wine mixed with myrrh, which would dull the pain, and he refused it. The truth is, Jesus wanted to feel the weight of the cost of his own love for you and me. There's this passage in Philippians that says that he did not see equality with God as something that he should hold on to tightly, but instead he emptied himself, being obedient to death, even death on a cross. And so he had the opportunity, just like he could have taken the shortcut when it was time for him to return to the Father. He could have shortcut that straight that way, but instead he went the long way to Jerusalem. In this moment, he could have done the same thing. Do I want to feel the pain? No, I don't. I need to go through the cross motions, but I can give myself a supernatural shot of adrenaline or painkiller, or I can drink the wine mixed with the myrrh and just feel a little bit less. But Jesus rejects all of those opportunities and instead says, I want to feel it all. I want to understand the weight of what I'm carrying, because the reason I'm doing this is because of my love and desire for all of humanity, those that are watching me, mocking me, and those who have yet to be born that will sit in churches across the world 2,000 years from now. I want to feel the weight of their sin. It matters to me. He wanted to feel it. It says they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each would get. It was 9 a.m. when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." We can imagine the scene Mark does such an incredible job at giving us vivid imagery. But what if you're not supposed to imagine it? What if instead of imagining it, you were invited to live it? What if it wasn't just supposed to be a moment in the story of God, but what if it was supposed to be part of your story? Before Jesus even carries his cross and has Simon help him carry his cross, Jesus tells his closest friends this in Luke 9, verse 23. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Jesus, before the cross is even a thing, starts talking about what it means to carry a cross. Now, I can imagine the first time they're hearing this metaphor from Jesus, they're like, this is such a random thing you want us to do, Jesus. Like, of all the rabbi talk you can have, the one thing you keep pressing upon us is deny yourself and pick up every single day your own cross. Like, why would we do that? Who does that, Jesus? Criminals do that in Rome, Jesus. Jewish disciples of rabbis don't pick up crosses every day. The metaphor falls pretty flat for them. But I would imagine as they get word of what's taking place with Jesus, and maybe a few of them actually catch a glimpse of Jesus carrying his cross, they begin to realize, what's that thing Jesus talked about so many times? He wants us to carry our cross he wants us to do that every day? Every day? This is what he wants us to picture with our own life, this agonizing walk from one place to a hill to be crucified, having someone else even at times step in to carry weight we can't carry. This is what Jesus wants from us every single day. And Jesus would say without hesitation, yes, this is what I'm asking of you. Which is so different than just, God, I want to go to heaven and I don't want to go to hell. It's such a different mindset. It's a different worldview. It's a different approach to everything. The thing is, sometimes when we get super Christian, when we get a little too Christian, we convince ourselves that we've got real crosses. I mean, we have told ourselves, I got to carry my cross. I'm carrying my cross. And somebody like, well, what's your cross, man? Tell me what you're carrying, man. What kind of cross are you carrying? Like, man, my boss is so annoying. And I carry that cross every day. I carry that cross. I go into work and I'm like, man, he's so annoying, but I'm going to carry that cross because I'm a Jesus follower. Or it's holidays and the in-laws are coming to town and you're like, oh, I'm about to bear that cross. I'm going to carry that cross. I'm going to put that on my back and I'm not going to complain. I'm going to be a good spouse. I'm going to carry that cross all the way through Thanksgiving. I ain't going to say a word because I'm a Jesus follower. I'm not talking about my mother-in-law, by the way. She's incredible. Thank you, Sandy. Or we'll say, hey, the cross I carry is Atlanta traffic. Traffic is so bad, but I ain't cursing anymore in traffic, and I bear that cross every day. I'm not even telling people where they can go anymore in traffic. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even telling them anymore. Sometimes if I do tell them, I say, you can go to heaven. You know what I'm saying? That's what I tell them. I'm bearing this cross. Those are not crosses to bear. That's just life. The cross is daily dying to yourself. It's a daily yes to Jesus. And Jesus isn't okay with you simply feeling sad about his cross. He's asking you to carry yours. So I want to be super practical with you and what crosses we actually should be carrying every day. Because the thing is, sometimes we pretend like we've got to look for a cross. Like, oh man, it's just so hard for me to find a cross. No, it's not. It isn't. The problem is the cross, it's so inconvenient, it's such an interruption that when we see the cross in our life each day, which every single one of us see crosses every day, we look at those and we say, hard pass. No, ain't got time for that foolishness. I got too many things right now. I'm gonna pass on that. We see the crosses all the time. We see the opportunity to pick it up, to deny ourselves, and walk in the direction we ought to be walking in. But because it's an interruption and because it's incredibly inconvenient, we say, hard pass on the cross. Let me give you a few examples. Forgiveness is a cross. We have the opportunity to forgive people that don't deserve being forgiven, that haven't asked to be forgiven, that have yet to apologize for what we could possibly forgive them for. They don't even realize they've done something wrong. Yet forgiveness in that moment is a cross. It's such an interruption, incredibly inconvenient. But instead we say, hard pass on forgiveness. I'd rather just take bitterness, which fits very nice and neatly in that same space that forgiveness would sit in. And so I would rather hold on to bitterness because with bitterness, I've got a little control. I'm still angry and mad and upset about it. And because I'm angry and I'm mad and upset about it, that gives me the ability to control the situation that I'm in. And I feel more comfortable when I've got control of the situation that I'm in. Even though I understand Jesus would ask me, take up the cross of forgiveness, which means I'm not going to allow what they did to me to influence any other relationship that I'm going to have. I'm not going to allow what they did to me to interrupt how I feel about other human beings in my life. I'm not going to allow what took place that they did wrong in my direction to influence how I'm going to feel about my relationship with Jesus or my relationship with other people. And so I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to release myself of being burdened by their mistakes. But bitterness, once we forgive, we have no control. Bitterness, we hang on to it. We can still hold it over their head. Maybe even manipulate them into getting something in our advantage. If we let it go, if we release it, it's a different story. Or maybe it's taking responsibility, integrity, and character. That's a cross. As followers of Jesus, one of the things that we've talked about over and over again, especially around Good Friday, when we remember the death of Jesus on the cross, is that Christians, one of the things that's hurled at us most often is the label that we're hypocrites. And the truth is, we are. We are. We believe one thing, we say one thing, and the truth is we're imperfect, so we do another. And the reason that thing sticks to us, though, because the truth is everyone's a hypocrite. We all want to be the best versions of ourselves. We all believe certain things are wrong, and we still do those certain things that are wrong. The thing that separates us and makes us so sticky with that label is because we refuse to admit when we messed up. Because we don't want to take the cross of character and integrity and responsibility. Instead, we want to pretend that the cross is image management. Well, I want our community and the world and my family and my friends to think that I've got it together. Because I'm a Christian, I shouldn't do that. I don't want them to know that I messed up. But the reality is you can't hide things forever. And so when people find out about it, they're like, well, not only did you make the mistake, you tried to cover it up. You don't want to take responsibility. You don't want to make things right. And so now the hypocrite thing sticks to you like glue. And we as Christians have to be better than that. We have to own up. We've got to take responsibility. We've got to say, I messed up. And sometimes that means it's going to cost us. What, you thought the cross was an inconvenient blessing? Like in that moment, everything feels great? No. The cross comes with consequences. What was the consequence for Jesus? He died. So sometimes you owning up and having some character and integrity means you might lose your job because you made a big mistake. And I get, you're like, well, how do I provide for my family? You're on the hook for obedience. God's on the hook for the bills. So you be obedient, and you have character, and you have integrity. God will provide. But you've got to figure out how, as Christians, we've got to be the first to say, we messed up. That's a cross. It's an interruption, and it's inconvenient, and it is a cross. Faithfulness is a cross. In marriage, sometimes it's difficult to be faithful. It means saying no, sometimes rudely or emphatically. It means boundaries that might not make sense to everyone else. Faithfulness is a cross. It's a cross. But cross is hard. And so instead, what fits in a nice, neat little space that's shaped the same thing as faithfulness, we just rather quit. We figure quitting on our marriage, the mess that will create for us, that's so much easier to clean up than me actually taking responsibility and remaining faithful. Like that's gonna create a mess, and I'm not motivated to figure that out, but I am motivated just to figure out, I'll clean up the mess once I quit. Faithfulness, it's a cross. It's hard. It's an interruption. It's inconvenient. Sacrifice is a cross. Giving up something so that something else or someone else can benefit, that is a cross. But instead, we would say hard pass. I prefer comfort. When we get a choice between sacrifice and comfort, why would we not choose comfort? Serving is a cross. And so often we say hard pass. I'd rather just spectate. Serving, nah. Pass on that. I'll just stay and continue to watch. Here's the thing. When Simon was coming in from the countryside and Jesus fell to the ground and needed help carrying his cross, the Roman soldiers looked at Simon and said, "You carry his cross." Simon didn't get a choice in whether or not he wanted to bear the cross of Jesus. You do. You get an option. Simon couldn't say, hard pass. I got things to do, soldier. You know what I'm saying? Like, catch you later. You know, that was not an option for Simon. But you get that option. Every day you have a cross presented to you and you get to choose day in and day out. That's why Jesus, he's so smart. He knows so much. He said, carry your cross daily, because he knew every day you'd get the same choice. Cross, hard pass. Cross, hard pass. And it wouldn't be a one-time thing. It wouldn't be, should I get baptized? One-time thing. It wouldn't be, can I get saved? One-time thing. It wouldn't be, can I just go to heaven? It's not that. Jesus says every single day, cross or hard pass. You choose. You choose. You get to choose. And there's not a Roman soldier forcing you to do anything. You get to choose. You get to choose. I want to share something with you. Goodness, if you hadn't got it, if you're still figuring out how in the world does this apply to me, maybe if you haven't listened to anything else, listen to how we close. I want to read to you again a passage I already read to you, because there was something kind of tucked away in it that is so special. It is so significant. I don't know why it's not the poster child over and over again as we lead up to Easter. Maybe you picked up on it. I want to go all the way back to the beginning of the moment with Simon. And I want to read to you. And it's just kind of hidden in there, so you got to pay attention. This is a really good reason why. Don't take the hard path, take the cross. This is why. Mark 15:21. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. So we get a lot of information there. His name is Simon. He's from Cyrene. He was just passing by, so he wasn't participating. He wasn't a sympathizer with Jesus. He wasn't involved in the crucifixion whatsoever. He wasn't involved in wanting to know what was happening. It was just a normal Friday morning in occupied Jerusalem. What else did we learn about Simon in that passage? He's a father. You know, there's one dad on the planet that was given the opportunity to carry the cross of Jesus. And let me share with you the result. The author of Mark knew Simon's kids' names. In fact, the author of the book of Mark not only knew his kids' names, he knew that his audience knew Simon's kids. So Simon goes from I'm just walking by. He gets the opportunity to carry the cross of Jesus, and it changes his affiliation with what God is doing in his life, so much so it goes into the next generation. That the new church, 40, 50, 60 years after this moment took place, knew his kids' names, which meant that his kids were involved in the first century church. And all he was doing was wrong place at wrong time, incredibly inconvenient. An enormous interruption in his day derailed the Passover meeting and the whole idea, derailed that whole festival for him, became unclean. And in that moment, he took on the cross one single day, and it changed not only his lives, but his kids' lives. Carrying your cross, it changes your children's lives. If you can't figure out why you need to not hard pass and you simply need to carry the cross, it's because your kids need to see you carry crosses. And you might be sitting here thinking, well, I don't have kids. This isn't really just about kids. This is about anyone in your life that looks up to you. Whether it's an assistant at work or some new person that just showed up is trying to learn the ropes, or someone else's kids that thinks that you're cool, or fill in the blank, or maybe you're in charge, or maybe you're teaching, whatever it is, they need to see you carry the cross that Jesus gives you day in and day out, because it changes their lives, not just yours. So yeah, you might have the mentality, I'm just in this because I don't want to go to hell and I want to go to heaven. It is so much bigger than that. So much bigger than that. It's 2,000 years later, and we just said Alexander and Rufus. We just said that man's kids' names. Not only did we say it, there will be Christians across the globe in the next 14 days that will say his kids' names because he was interrupted by the cross. The cross doesn't just change things for you. It changes things for the people around you. And I know maybe you're hearing, good grief, Clint, so Christianity is just about suffering. I get it. People, we get so myopic. We get so entrenched. This is what we do as Christians. We focus on one verse and we're like, here it is. The only reason Jesus goes to the cross is because of what he does as a result of the cross. Sunday, it changed the agony of the cross. It changed the purpose of how we see the cross. Jesus doesn't take you through hard things in life to leave you on Friday. Jesus helps lead you through hard things in life because Sunday is significant, because resurrection is possible. And just like you were asked to carry your cross daily, to deny yourself daily, there's always a resurrection as a result of your cross. Like we suffer in really difficult places and we go through hard things and we bear the burdens of other people. And sometimes we even carry their cross. And the result of us doing that is resurrection takes place. Or let me put it this way, new life and transformation takes place. That the version of Jesus on Sunday, that's the Jesus you and I will meet face to face. We will not see the version of Jesus on Friday. And the version of Jesus, the version of yourself that chooses to carry the cross every day will not be the same version of yourself when the cross has done its work and Jesus has used that work to foster new life and resurrection in your life. Yes, following Jesus is hard, but the result of following Jesus is transformation. It's surrender and new. It's the greatness of spring. It's life and joy that has no end. It's a peace and a love and a desire for other people that's unquenchable. It's the goodness of God wrapped up in our everyday, ordinary, walking around lives. And yeah, there's a cross every day attached to it. But once you've tasted what comes as a result of the cross, you wouldn't trade it in for anything. The way is long. The cross is heavy. But the truth is, when you carry a cross, you get to walk right next to Jesus. I'm not sure it actually gets better than that.